I think that as the story catcher, what it really is having this this intense curiosity in what people do. And I find that as I pay attention to them and ask them a few questions, they share this great excitement they've had, some accomplishment they've had, and they've just in the act of listening to them, it fans the embers and it opens up doors. It's really I really consider it like a sacred work. And the other interesting piece about it is that I find other people who like listening to it. People who they'll never meet them. They'll never meet that person, but they get a chance to meet their own needs through leaning on and digging into that person's experience.
If you thought about that thing that happens between people even when they don't know one another, this thing that seems to move from person to person or from episode to episode, and you use the word sacred, which I found interesting. What do you think that is? That how would you describe that thing that moves between us and among us when we're touched by something as simple as a conversation? It starts with the conversation, somebody else sees it, they're touched this way, and they mention it to somebody else. What, in that realm of the sacred, what do you think's moving around there that keeps us connected as humans?
Well, we all have a need to find meaning in our life, and when you've done some thinking about it, or maybe you haven't done some thinking about it. So when you see somebody else who has wrestled with something, it can say, "Oh, I could do that," because interviewed are necessarily rock stars, but what they have is a passion and they have a love, and in a way, you sort of think, "Wait a minute, I could do that." And so people can take that and try it out. I often have somebody in mind when I'm interviewing somebody. I think, what are the questions that a friend of mine or somebody else might have of this person? And so when I ask those kind of questions, then that means that when that other person or those other people or that type of person facing those challenges sees it, they resonate, because it's not a personal thing. I'm not just asking my questions. I'm saying, what do people need to know? Like, when you talk to this senior dude in a black jacket was walking through Thrifty's one day, and he had 4 little buttons on his thing, and I said, "You got a minute? I want to ask some permission." He said, "Yeah." And I said, "Like, what is the story here?" It turns out he was maybe one of the first snowbirds, the Canadian aeronautic team. So one of my questions was, how many people stop and ask you your buttons? He said, "You're the only one?" It's crazy.